Senior researcher Kethvar pressed his thin fingers against the smooth control panel as red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Zephyr's Grace. The alien scientist's large eyes, adapted for his homeworld's dim light, widened with concern as he read the damage reports scrolling across the holographic displays. "How bad is it, Morcas?" he asked, turning to the ship's engineer who was frantically working at another console nearby. Morx looked up from her work, her pale blue skin showing darker patches that indicated stress among their species. "The quantum drive is completely dead. Something went wrong during our last jump. We have backup power, but life support will fail in maybe 6 days." The research vessel had been studying unusual plant life on dead worlds in this remote sector of the galaxy. The Altarian Coalition prided itself on peaceful exploration and scientific discovery. Their ships were built for research, not for surviving emergencies far from home. Kethvar had commanded dozens of such missions, but nothing had ever gone this wrong before. Navigator Zixthul floated over to them, his species naturally graceful in the low-gravity environment they preferred. "I have been scanning nearby systems for any signs of civilization. There is one system that shows promise. The third planet has oxygen, water, and what appear to be artificial electromagnetic signals." Kethvar studied the sensor readings on the main screen. The planet looked beautiful from this distance, with blue oceans and white clouds swirling around green and brown continents. What kind of signals? Basic radio transmissions, mostly? The patterns suggest they have discovered electricity and simple communication technology. Maybe they are in their early industrial period. Zixthul paused his report. "However, I am also detecting some more advanced signals. Satellite networks, digital communications. It might be more developed than first scans showed." The ship shuddered slightly as another system failed. Morcas cursed in her native language. "We are losing atmospheric processors now. I can fix some things, but without proper parts, we have maybe 4 days instead of 6. Kethvar made the decision that would change everything. Send a standard galactic distress signal toward that planet. Follow Coalition first contact protocols. Mathematics first, then basic peaceful intentions, then our situation. Are you sure? Zixthul asked nervously. Contact with primitive species can be dangerous. What if they are hostile? What choice do we have? Kethvar replied, watching another warning light turn red on his console. We die here in space, or we take a chance that they might help us. Meanwhile, 300 million kilometers away. On Earth, Lisa Parker was finishing her night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station hidden in the Colorado mountains. The facility looked like a normal radio telescope from the outside, but it was actually one of several secret installations designed to watch for exactly this kind of signal. Lisa had been monitoring deep space communications for 8 years, mostly listening to natural radio waves from distant stars and galaxies. She had never expected to actually find anything artificial. When her computer started beeping urgently, she almost ignored it, thinking it was another equipment malfunction. But the signal was unlike anything in her database. It was clearly artificial, structured, and coming from just outside their solar system. Lisa's hands shook as she started recording everything and running the signal through every analysis program she had. The signal began with prime numbers and moved to basic mathematical concepts. Even without translation software, Lisa could see it was designed to show intelligence. Her training kicked in, and she immediately called her supervisor. Colonel Jake Morrison arrived at the facility within 20 minutes, still wearing his pajamas under his military jacket. He had been dreaming of his retirement next year, not of first contact with alien life. But as he studied the signals Lisa had recorded, he knew his quiet life was over. How long has this been coming in? He asked, watching the mathematical patterns. Scroll across Lisa's screen. About 2 hours now. It stopped sending math about 30 minutes ago and switched to these other patterns. I think they might be trying to show peaceful intentions. Lisa pointed to repeating sequences that seemed designed to show non-aggressive behavior. Jake picked up his secure phone and dialed. A number he had memorized but hoped never to use. Admiral Turner. Yes, ma'am. This is Morrison at Site 7. We have a code black situation. Yes, ma'am. It's real. Admiral Beth Turner had been expecting this call for 15 years. ever since she helped design the protocols for alien contact. She arrived at the Pentagon at 4 in the morning, where emergency teams were already gathering. The Terran Defense Initiative had been preparing for this moment since its secret founding in 2089. Dr. Alan Rodriguez was the first scientist to arrive, carrying 3 cups of coffee and looking more excited than worried. As Earth's leading expert in theoretical xenolinguistics, he had spent his career preparing for signals like this. "Have you tried responding yet?" he asked, settling down at a computer terminal. "No responses yet," Admiral Turner replied. "We need to understand what we're dealing with first." "What do you think about their signal?" Dr. Rodriguez studied the data for several minutes before speaking. "This is clearly from an advanced civilization, but they're following what appears to be standard first contact procedures. Math, peaceful symbols, then more complex information. They're trying very hard not to seem threatening." Captain Nina Hayes, the military's expert on alien technology analysis, looked up from her own computer. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the technical aspects of their signal. Whatever is sending this has incredibly advanced technology. The signal is coming from a ship, and that ship is in serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Admiral Turner asked. "Power fluctuations, irregular transmission patterns, emergency frequencies mixed in with the peaceful contact signals."
"Yes, I think..."
"They're not just trying to talk to us. They're asking for help." Back aboard the Zephyr's Grace, Kethvar waited anxiously for any response from the planet. His species had made contact with dozens of civilizations over the centuries, and most had responded within hours of receiving a first contact signal. Some sent simple mathematical replies, others more complex messages, but they always responded quickly. "Still nothing?" he asked Zixthul for the 10th time in an hour. "No, but I am detecting increased activity on the planet. More satellite traffic, more digital communications. I think our signal got their attention." What Kethvar didn't know was that his signal had done more than get Earth's attention. It had activated the largest secret military operation in human history. Around the world, ships that looked like deep space research vessels were receiving coded messages and changing course toward his location. The aliens expected a simple radio reply from a primitive civilization. Instead, they were about to meet an entire armada that had been waiting for them. Admiral Beth Turner walked quickly through the Pentagon's underground corridors at 5 in the morning. Her footsteps echoed off the concrete walls as security guards saluted and opened doors ahead of her. She had been preparing for this moment for over a decade, but now that it was happening, she felt the weight of every decision she was about to make. The emergency meeting room was already full when she arrived. President Ryan Cole sat at the head of the long table, looking tired but alert. The Joint Chiefs of Staff filled the chairs on both sides, along with several people in civilian clothes that most of the military officers didn't recognize. "What's our situation, Admiral?" President Cole asked, without any small talk. "Sir, we have confirmed contact with an extraterrestrial vessel approximately 4 hours outside our solar system. The signal originated from what appears to be a ship. In distress." Admiral Turner activated the large screen at the front of the room, showing the mathematical patterns the aliens had transmitted. Dr. Alan Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "Mr. President, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The civilization is definitely more advanced than us, but they're following peaceful contact procedures. They're not trying to hide their location or capabilities." General Bob Miller, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, looked skeptical. "That could be exactly what they want us to think. How do we know this isn't some kind of advanced scout?" Captain Nina Hayes stood up and moved to the screen. "Sir, I've been studying the technical aspects of their transmission. Their ship is definitely in trouble. Power systems are failing, and they're broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Whatever they are, they need help." President Cole rubbed his forehead. "Options." Admiral Turner had been waiting for this question. "Sir, we have 3 choices. We can ignore the signal and hope they go away. We can send a simple radio response and see what happens. Or we can activate Protocol 7. The room went quiet. Most of the military officers knew what Protocol 7 meant, but few had ever expected it to be used. Commander Steve Walsh, head of the Terran Defense Initiative, finally spoke up. "Mr. President, Protocol 7 means full activation of our deep space assets. Every ship we've built over the last 15 years gets called home and armed for potential conflict. How many ships are we talking about? The president asked. 212 vessels, sir. Everything from destroyers to our largest battleships. They've all been disguised as research ships, mining vessels, and exploration crafts scattered throughout the solar system. Dr. Rodriguez looked shocked. You mean we've been building a secret navy this whole time? Not a secret from everyone who needed to know, Admiral Turner replied. After the Roswell incident and other unexplained events, we decided humanity needed to be ready. We've been preparing for first contact for decades. And we built our response around the assumption that any alien civilization would be potentially hostile. President Cole stood up and walked to the window, even though it only showed another concrete wall. If we activate this protocol, we're essentially declaring that Earth is ready for war. Are we sure that's the message we want to send? Captain Luke Bennett, commander of the flagship Terra's Shield, spoke from his position at the far end of the table. Sir, with respect, we don't know what message we should send because we don't know what we're dealing with. But if this is a scout ship, testing our defenses, we need to show them that Earth isn't defenseless. Admiral Turner pulled up another screen showing ship positions throughout the solar system. Our vessels can reach the alien ship's position within 18 hours if we activate now. Captain Bennett's ship is already the closest, along with 36 other combat vessels that can form the initial response group. What about trying to communicate first? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Maybe we can solve this peacefully? We will communicate, Admiral Turner assured him. Dr. Carol Fisher is already working on translation protocols, and we'll have full communication. Equipment on every ship, but we communicate from a position of strength. The president turned back to the table. What's the worst-case scenario if we're wrong about their intentions? Commander Walsh answered immediately. If they're hostile, and we respond with just a radio message, they could use our signal to locate Earth precisely and call for reinforcements. If they're advanced scouts for an invasion force, showing weakness could get billions of people killed. And if we're wrong about them being hostile, then we accidentally intimidate a peaceful alien civilization that was just asking for help, Admiral Turner replied. But they stay alive, we stay alive, and we can work out the misunderstanding later. President Cole sat back down and looked around the table. Gentlemen, ladies, this is the biggest decision in human history. We're about to announce to the galaxy that humanity exists and that we're armed. Are we all in agreement that this is the right choice? General Miller nodded. First, we have a duty to protect Earth and humanity. I support Protocol 7. One by one, the other military officers agreed. Dr. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable, but finally nodded. I still think we should try peaceful contact first, but I understand the need for caution. Admiral Turner, activate Protocol 7. But I want every effort made to communicate peacefully. We show strength, but we don't shoot first unless they do. Admiral Turner picked up the secure phone that connected directly to every Terran Defense Initiative facility on Earth and throughout the solar system. All stations, all ships. This is Admiral Turner. Authorization code Alpha 77 Bravo. Protocol 7 is now active. All vessels return to Earth space and prepare for alien contact. This is not a drill. Within minutes, messages began flowing to ships scattered from Mercury's orbital stations to the mining facilities around Pluto. Captain Bennett received his orders aboard the Terra's Shield while conducting research near Jupiter's moons. Captain Sarah Bell got the call while her ship Vanguard was disguised as an asteroid mining platform near the belt. Commander Troy Parker was testing new engines on his ship Starfall when the message reached him. Like all the other ship commanders, he had been waiting for this moment for years. The crews of these vessels were volunteers who had trained for alien contact, while the rest of humanity went about their daily lives. As the human fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system, the aliens aboard Zephyr's Grace continued. Waiting for a simple radio response, Kethvar checked their life support systems again and found they had maybe 3 days left. Any response yet? He asked Zixtul. Nothing direct, but something strange is happening. I'm detecting a lot of movement in their star system. Ships are changing course and heading in our direction. Kethvar felt a moment of hope. They're sending help? I think so, but there are a lot of ships. More than I would expect from a barely spacefaring civilization. What the aliens didn't understand was that they had just triggered the largest military mobilization in human history. Earth was sending them help, but it was coming in the form of an armada that had been built specifically to fight aliens. The peaceful first contact that both sides wanted was about to become something much more complicated. Kethvar felt his breathing become difficult as the air recyclers on the Zephyr's Grace began to fail. The research vessel's bridge was now lit only by emergency lights, casting strange shadows on the faces of his crew. They had been drifting in space for almost 2 days since sending their distress signal to the primitive planet. Life support is down to critical levels, Morkes reported from her engineering station. Her voice was weak, and the stress patterns on her blue skin were getting darker. I managed to fix the atmospheric processors for a few more hours, but we need rescue soon. Navigator Zixthul looked up from his sensors with confusion in his large eyes. The ships from the planet are getting closer, but something is wrong. There are too many of them. How many ships? Kethvar asked, moving closer to look at the display. 37 vessels in the first group. All of them are larger than our ship. I thought this was supposed to be a barely developed civilization. Zixthul's voice showed the fear that all of them were beginning to feel. Kethvar stared at the sensor readings. In all his years of making first contact with new species, he had never seen anything like this. Most civilizations sent 1 or 2 ships when responding to a distress call. Some sent none at all if they were too primitive or too afraid. But 37 ships suggested something that didn't make sense. Maybe they are more advanced than we thought, he said, trying to stay calm for his crew. The Coalition teaches us that some species develop space travel faster than others. Engineer Morkes shook her head. Advanced species don't send entire fleets to rescue one ship. They send medical vessels or rescue craft. This looks like... She paused, afraid to say what she was thinking. Like what? Kethvar demanded. Like a military response? Captain Luke Bennett stood on the bridge of the Terra's shield as his fleet approached the alien vessel. Through the main view screen, he could see the strange ship clearly now. Sleek and elegant, obviously built by an advanced civilization, but it was also clearly in trouble. Scorch marks along its hull showed where systems had failed, and it was drifting without power. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. Communications officer Amy Clark reported from her station. Put it on speakers, Bennett ordered. The transmission was a mixture of mathematical patterns and what sounded like distress signals. Dr. Carol Fisher, who'd been working on translation protocols, looked up from her computer terminal. Captain, I think I can understand some of this. They're transmitting their ship's specifications, crew manifest, and current condition. It's like they single quotes, surrendering. Captain Bennett frowned. Surrendering? We haven't even made contact yet, sir. It might not be surrender. It could be standard procedure for their species when they encounter a more powerful civilization. Giving us all their information to show they're not a threat. But to the humans, this looked exactly like military intelligence gathering. Why would a peaceful rescue require detailed ship specifications? Bennett had been trained to assume that any unknown contact could be hostile, and this behavior fit the pattern of an enemy probe gathering information about human capabilities. Signal the fleet to take defensive positions around the alien ship, Bennett ordered, and prepare a boarding party. We're going to secure that vessel. Colonel Pete Adams, commander of the Terra's Shield's Marine Detachment, began preparing his soldiers for what could be humanity's first hostile boarding action against an alien ship. The Marines put on their combat armor and checked their weapons, not knowing that the aliens inside the ship were simply following their species. Natural instincts when confronted by predators, back on the Zephyr's Grace. The crew watched in growing terror as the human ships surrounded them. The vessels were clearly military in design, bristling with weapons that were now pointed directly at their ship. They're not here to rescue us, Zixthul whispered, his voice shaking. Look at those ships. They're warships. Kethvar couldn't understand what had gone wrong. Every first contact protocol in Coalition history said that primitive species either ignored distress calls or sent help. They didn't send battle fleets. Try to communicate peaceful intentions again. Send the standard coalition greeting. When their transmission reached the human ships, it only made things worse. The message contained detailed information about coalition space, the location of their homeworlds, and their defensive capabilities. To the coalition, this was normal information sharing. To the humans, it looked like an invasion fleet announcing itself. "Captain Bennett, you need to see this," Dr. Fisher called out urgently. They just transmitted star maps showing the locations of dozens of star systems, fleet strength numbers, and what looks like military organization charts. Bennett felt his blood go cold. They're not asking for rescue. They're giving us intelligence. About their empire, he opened a channel to Admiral Turner back on Earth. "Admiral, this is Captain Bennett. The alien contact is not what we expected. They appear to be advanced scouts for a larger military force." On Earth, Admiral Turner received the message in the Pentagon's command center. President Cole and the emergency staff were still monitoring the situation around the clock. "Mr. President, Captain Bennett reports that the aliens have transmitted detailed military intelligence about their civilization, star maps, fleet strengths, multiple star systems under their control." Dr. Rodriguez looked confused. "Doesn't make sense. Why would they give us that information if they were hostile?" "Because they're testing us," General Miller said grimly. "They want to see how we react to knowing how outnumbered we are." President Cole made a decision that would change everything. "Tell Captain Bennett to secure that alien ship. We need to know what we're dealing with before their friends arrive." The order reached Bennett within minutes. He opened a channel to the alien ship, with Amy Clark transmitting on all frequencies that Dr. Fisher thought the aliens might understand. "Alien vessel. This is Captain Luke Bennett of the Terran Defense Fleet. Power down all systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with force." On the Zephyr's Grace, the crew heard the transmission through their failing translation systems. The words came through as harsh and threatening, exactly the kind of communication their species associated with predator behavior. "They want us to surrender completely," Morcus said, her voice barely a whisper. "What choice do we have?" Kethvar replied, looking at his dying crew and failing ship. "Power down everything, except life support." But as the human Marines prepared to board their ship, Kethvar made a decision that would make everything worse. Following Coalition emergency protocols, he activated the ship's emergency beacon and began broadcasting a distress call to any Coalition forces in the region. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Senior Researcher Kethvar of the Zephyr's Grace. We are being held by hostile forces from a Deathworld species. They have superior military technology and appear to be aggressive predators. Requesting immediate assistance." The message raced through space toward the nearest Coalition patrol fleet. Carrying news that would terrify the peaceful alien civilization, they had encountered a species that responded to distress calls with warships back on the Terra's shield. Dr. Fisher detected the outgoing transmission, and her face went pale. "Captain, they just sent another message. I can't translate all of it, but I caught the words for hostile military and assistance." Captain Bennett realized what this meant. They're calling for backup. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, the alien vessel has just transmitted a call for reinforcements. Prepare for incoming hostile contacts." What had started as a rescue mission was rapidly becoming the first battle of an interstellar war, and neither side understood how badly they had misread the other's intentions. War leader Vashtul had never expected to use his military training in actual combat. The Altarian coalition had been at peace for over 3 centuries, and his position was mostly ceremonial. He spent most of his time organizing parades and training exercises that everyone knew would never be needed. But when the emergency transmission from the Zephyr's Grace reached his patrol fleet, everything changed. "How far away are they?" he asked his navigation officer, trying to keep his voice steady. 2 days at maximum speed, War Leader." "But the transmission is very concerning. Senior Researcher Kethvar says they encountered a Deathworld species with superior military technology." Vashtul felt his stomach twist with fear. Deathworld species were the stuff of nightmares in Coalition space. Planets where life had to fight constantly to survive produced creatures that other species could barely comprehend. The Coalition had encountered 2 Deathworld species before, and both times they had been forced to avoid those star systems entirely. "How many ships do we have available?" he asked. 12 vessels, war leader. All patrol ships with light defensive weapons. We were never meant to fight a real war. Ashtul knew that 12 ships was probably not enough, but he couldn't abandon Coalition citizens to hostile aliens. Set course for their position. Send a message to Coalition Command. Tell them we may have encountered a hostile Deathworld species and request immediate reinforcements. The Coalition fleet began moving toward what they thought would be a rescue mission against primitive but dangerous aliens. None of them understood that they were heading toward a confrontation with the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. On Earth, intelligence analyst Rachel Stone was working around the clock in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon. Her job was to decode and analyze every signal coming from space, and what she was seeing made her more worried by the hour. "Admiral Turner, you need to see this," she called out as the Admiral entered the analysis center. "What do you have, Stone?" Rachel pointed to her computer screen, which showed a series of intercepted alien transmissions. "We've been monitoring their communications since the first contact. Aliens have been sending distress calls to something called the Coalition, and now we're detecting response signals." Admiral Turner studied the data carefully. "How many ships?"
At least 12.
"Possibly more. They're moving toward Captain Bennett's position, and they'll arrive in about 48 hours. Rachel switched to another screen. "But Admiral, there's something else. I've been analyzing the content of their messages, and I think we might have made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The aliens aren't acting like an invasion force. Their communications patterns, their behavior, even their ship design, it all suggests they're scientists, not soldiers. I think they really were just asking for help." Admiral Turner felt a cold weight in her stomach. "Are you sure?" "Not completely, but the evidence is building. And now their military is coming to rescue them from what they think is a hostile encounter." The Admiral realized the terrible irony of the situation. "So we responded to a peaceful distress call with a battle fleet, and now they're sending their military to rescue them from us? That's what it looks like, Admiral." Turner immediately opened a secure channel to President Cole. "Mr. President, we may have a serious problem developing." Meanwhile, Captain Bennett's fleet was preparing for what they expected to be a hostile encounter. The alien research ship had been secured, and Colonel Adams' Marines had boarded it to find 3 terrified alien scientists who offered no resistance whatsoever. "Captain, this is Colonel Adams reporting from the alien ship," came the voice over the communication system. "Sir, these aliens are definitely not soldiers. They're scared, weak, and their ship has no weapons at all. This looks like a real research vessel." Captain Bennett felt the first stirring of doubt about their approach. "Are they cooperating?" "Yes, sir, completely. They're trying to help us understand their language, and they keep showing us their scientific equipment." "Captain, I don't think these are enemy scouts." But before Bennett could respond, his sensor officer called out urgently, "Captain, we're detecting incoming ships. 12 vessels approaching from the direction of deep space. Coalition reinforcements?" "As to be, sir. They'll be here in 2 days." Bennett opened a channel to Admiral Turner on Earth. "Admiral, we have confirmed hostile reinforcements inbound. 12 ships, estimated arrival in 48 hours, requesting permission to engage." "Permission denied, Captain," Turner replied immediately. "New intelligence suggests this may all be a misunderstanding. Continue to monitor, but do not fire unless fired upon." Captain Sarah Bell, commanding the Vanguard, was monitoring communications from her position in the fleet formation. "Captain Bennett, this is Captain Bell. My science officer has been analyzing the alien ship's design. It's definitely built for research, not combat." "What?" "No weapons, no military systems, just laboratories and living quarters." Commander Troy Parker, aboard the Starfall, added his own observations. "Captain, my crew has been studying their distress signals. The mathematical patterns and peaceful symbols they used are consistent with genuine scientific contact protocols. I don't think they ever intended to be hostile, but it was too late to change the situation icily. Both fleets were now committed to a course that neither side really wanted. The human fleet couldn't simply leave without looking weak, and the coalition fleet couldn't abandon their people to what they thought were dangerous predators. Dr. Rodriguez, working frantically with Dr. Fisher on Earth, finally achieved a breakthrough in translating the alien language. What he discovered made the situation even more complicated. Admiral Turner, I've been analyzing all the alien communications, and I think I understand what happened, he said during an emergency video conference. Their species appears to be naturally submissive when confronted by what they perceive. As predators, they saw our military ships. They immediately started transmitting everything they knew as a survival instinct. Survival instinct? Yes, Admiral. On their world, when predators show up, prey animals survive by showing they're not a threat and by providing useful information. They weren't trying to give us military intelligence. They were trying to convince us not to eat them. The absurdity of the situation was becoming clear. Earth had interpreted peaceful surrender as hostile intelligence gathering, while the aliens had interpreted human military preparedness as predatory aggression. Can we fix this? President Cole asked during an emergency cabinet meeting. Maybe, but it's going to be difficult, Admiral Turner replied. We now have two armed fleets approaching each other, both sides thinking the other is hostile. The aliens think we're aggressive Deathworlders, and we've been treating them like an invasion force. General Miller looked at the tactical displays, showing both fleets. The real problem is that our response has confirmed their worst fears about us. We proved we were exactly the kind of military species they were afraid of. When the coalition fleet finally arrived at the edge of the confrontation, Zone War Leader Vashtul was horrified by what he saw. The human fleet had grown to over 50 ships, all of them clearly designed for war. His 12 patrol vessels looked like toys in comparison. By the ancestors, he whispered, staring at the display. How many ships do they have? Sensors show 53 vessels, War Leader. All armed with weapons we don't recognize, and there are more ships arriving. Vashtul realized he had made a terrible mistake. This wasn't a rescue mission anymore. This was a potential war between the coalition and a species that had built an entire armada before they even knew aliens existed. Send a message to coalition. Command, he ordered. Tell them we have encountered a Deathworld species with massive military capabilities. Request immediate evacuation of all coalition worlds within 50 light-years of this system. The message that reached coalition headquarters sent panic through the peaceful alien civilization. For the first time in centuries, they began preparing for war against an enemy they didn't understand and couldn't match. Both sides were now trapped in a confrontation that neither wanted, driven by fear and misunderstanding toward what could become the galaxy's first interstellar war. The two fleets faced each other across the empty darkness of space like ancient armies preparing for battle. On one side, War Leader Vashtul commanded 12 coalition patrol ships that had never been designed for real combat. On the other side, Captain Bennett led 53 human warships that had been built specifically to fight aliens. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner, Admiral Turner's son, watched the alien ships from his position aboard the Defiant. He had been studying their movement patterns for hours, and something was bothering him about what he saw. Captain Rodriguez, take a look at this, he called to his commanding officer, pointing at his tactical display. The alien ships aren't forming attack patterns. Look at how they're positioning themselves. Captain Rodriguez studied the display carefully. The alien ships were clustered together in tight defensive groups, like frightened animals huddling. For protection. You're right, Turner. They're not preparing to attack. They're trying to protect each other. This observation was being made on other human ships as well. Across the fleet, experienced military officers were realizing that the coalition ships were behaving more like prey than predators. On the Terra's shield, Dr. Fisher was working desperately with Dr. Rodriguez via communication link to establish clear contact with the aliens. They had finally cracked enough of the alien language to attempt real conversation. Captain Bennett, I think I can communicate with them now, Dr. Fisher announced. But sir, everything I've learned suggests that this is all a massive misunderstanding. Bennett, looked at the tactical display showing the two fleets facing off against each other. Explain. Sir, their language has very specific words for predator and prey relationships. They've been calling us apex predators and referring to themselves as peaceful grazers. They're not here to fight us. They're here to rescue their people from what they think are dangerous carnivores. Bennett realized the terrible irony of the situation, and we've been treating them like an invasion force. Yes, sir. And our behavior has confirmed every fear they have about Deathworld species. Meanwhile, aboard the Coalition flagship, war leader Vash Tool was receiving his own disturbing intelligence. His science officer had been analyzing the human ships and made a discovery that changed everything. War leader, I've been studying the Deathworld ships, and I found something strange. Many of them were disguised as civilian vessels until recently. Research ships, mining platforms, exploration craft, they all dropped their disguises when they arrived here. What does that mean? Vashtal asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. It means they built a secret military fleet before. They even knew we existed. They were preparing for war with aliens they had never met. The full horror of humanity's nature became clear to the Coalition commander. This wasn't just a regressive species. This was a species so paranoid and militaristic that they had armed themselves against imaginary enemies. Back on Earth, President Cole was receiving updates from the confrontation zone while trying to figure out how to prevent an interstellar war. Admiral Turner stood beside him in the Situation Room, both of them watching the live tactical display. How many ships do we have out there now? The President asked. Adisavan, sir. More are arriving every hour as our deep space assets respond to the emergency. Dr. Rodriguez, participating via video link from his laboratory, had been working non-stop on translation protocols. Mr. President, I've made contact with the alien commander. His name is War Leader Vash Tool, and he's agreed to a communication attempt. Put him through. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face for the first time in human history. Vash Tool appeared nervous and frightened, his large eyes darting around as if looking for escape routes. Greetings, leader of the Deathworld species, Vash Tool said through the translation system. I am War Leader Vash Tool of the Altarian Coalition. We do not wish to fight your powerful armada. President Cole exchanged glances with Admiral Turner. Before responding, War Leader Vash Tool, I am President Cole of Earth. We also do not wish to fight. We were only trying to help your people who sent us a distress signal. Help. Vash Tool looked confused. But you surrounded our research vessel with warships and took our people prisoner. We thought your research vessel might be a military scout, Admiral Turner explained. When they transmitted detailed information about your civilization, we interpreted it as hostile intelligence gathering. Vash Tool's expression changed to one of understanding and horror. They were following submission protocols. When prey species encounter predators, they provide all useful information to show they are not a threat. The revelation hit both sides. Simultaneously, humans realized they had been treating frightened scientists like enemy soldiers. The aliens realized that the humans had genuinely been trying to help, but their military response had terrified the Coalition crew. Dr. Fisher, still aboard the Terra's shield, was monitoring the communication and made another important discovery. President Cole, Admiral Turner, I think I know why this got so out of control. The aliens' natural response to perceived predators is complete submission and information sharing. Our natural response to unknown contacts is overwhelming military preparation. We're literally opposite types of species. Captain Bennett, listening to the conversation, finally understood what had happened. Sir, request permission to begin. Standing down our weapons. If we're going to fix this, someone has to make the first peaceful gesture. President Cole considered the request carefully. War Leader Vash Tool, if we order our ships to power down their weapons, will you do the same? Your species would do that? Vash Tool asked, sounding amazed. Even though you have superior firepower? We're not actually aggressive predators, President Cole replied. We just prepare for the worst possible situations. It's how we survived on our planet. Slowly, carefully, both fleets began powering down their weapon systems. The process took hours because neither side completely trusted the other. But eventually, the immediate threat of combat passed. War leader Vashtul was the first to break the tense silence. Your species built an entire armada before you even knew other civilizations existed. The Coalition Council will need to know about this. Admiral Turner nodded. And we need to know about the Coalition. It appears we have a lot to learn about. Each other? What happens now? Captain Bennett asked, over the communication channel. President. Cole looked at the display showing dozens of human warships facing off against the small Coalition fleet. Now we try to turn this misunderstanding into an opportunity. War leader. Would the Coalition be interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations with Earth? I think the Coalition would be very interested in ensuring that Earth remains friendly, Vashtul replied carefully. Your military capabilities are... impressive. Dr. Rodriguez couldn't help but smile. Mr. President, I think we just accidentally announced to the galaxy that humanity is ready for interstellar politics. Senior researcher Kethvar, finally rescued from his failing ship and recovering aboard a human medical vessel, sent his own report back to Coalition Command. The Deathworld species called humans are not naturally aggressive. They are naturally paranoid. They built weapons to fight wars that did not exist yet. Recommend extreme caution and immediate diplomatic contact as the two fleets separated, and began the long process of establishing formal first contact protocols. Both sides realized that this encounter had changed everything. The galaxy now knew that Earth existed and that humans were the kind of species that prepared for alien invasions before aliens arrived. The Coalition began, quietly warning other civilizations about the new Deathworld species that had joined galactic civilization. Not because humans were evil, but because they were so well prepared for war that they had accidentally intimidated an entire alien military force without even trying. And on Earth, President Cole signed the first Interstellar Defense Authorization Act, officially acknowledging that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The secret fleet that had been built to fight imaginary aliens had just become the foundation of Earth's new role in galactic politics. The age of human isolation was over, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.